Sure, that's fine. Go. Thanks to the tech people. Good morning to those of you. Good morning to those of you here in the sanctuary and to those of you viewing us online. My name is Charles Thomas, and I welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Flint. And of all the things you could have done this morning, we're so happy you chose to join us for a Sunday service of this progressive religious community in which people are free to be themselves without fear. If you would like more information about our faith tradition or this congregation, please feel free to talk with one of our ministers today, Jerry and Lynn, seated to my left, or via their contact information that may be found online at uuflint.org. Once again, uuflint.org. If you are a visitor and you are interested in receiving our weekly email newsletter, you may sign up at our website, scan the QR code on the order of service, or complete the card in the seat backs you can find here in the sanctuary. So if you look in front of you and you see back in front of you, you'll see a card that looks like this with information on the back for you to fill out so you can join our email newsletter weekly updates. Also, please see the back of your order of service for important announcements, but I'd like to quickly highlight a few right now. First, on Wednesday, April 24th at 6 p.m., we'll have the second discussion on the book Frederick Douglass. Information is on the back of your order of service or in the e-update. If you plan to come and would like pizza, please contact Reverend Lynn by Tuesday if you've not already notified her. By the way, this is a big book, but please feel free to join the event even if you just started the book. Second announcement, we all like to fight the good fight, or you probably wouldn't be here. If you have a good idea for a social action project, large or small, one time or longer term, we'd like to hear about it. Contact one of the ministers or moderator Sue Kinsey or incoming moderator Ray Rust. We'll now have our chalice lighting. We light this chalice, remembering and honoring our own tradition and celebrating the wisdom of other traditions as well. We search for justice, meaning, and purpose. May we remember that justice, meaning, and purpose live first in listening to one another. Please join me in the reciting of our covenant, recognizing the richness of diversity, the beauty and wonder of shared worship, and the transforming power of love and service. We gather as a sacred, intentional community to freely seek knowledge and truth, to celebrate the fullness of life, and by our actions to increase goodness and justice.
that again, Jen, while we watch the slides? Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Welcome to this place of possibility. This is love's hearth, the home of hope, a refuge for minds in search of truth unfolding, ever beautiful, ever strange. Here, compassion is our shelter, freedom our protection from the storms of bigotry and hate. In this abode, may we find comfort and courage. Here, may our sight become vision to see the unseeing, to glimpse the good that is yet to be.
Please stand if willing. Try not to drop your book. Let freedom move both east and west, and love both south and north, in universal fellowship throughout the whole wide earth. In beauty, wonder everywhere, let us communion find. Compassion be the golden cord, most binding humankind. Beyond all barriers of race, of color, caste, or creed, let us make friendship, human worth, our common faith and deed. That east and west will meet and share, and south shall build with north. What human commonwealth of good throughout the whole wide earth. Be seated.
During our musical meditation, please feel free to light candles either up front or in the back. And of course, you may also write in the book, and it will be printed in our weekly e-update. Our spoken meditation today is from the Hasidic teachings about Passover. In each one of us, there is an Egypt and a Pharaoh and a Moses, and freedom in a promised land. And every point in time is an opportunity for another Exodus. Egypt is a place or a way of thinking that chains you to who you are, constraining you from growth and change. And Pharaoh is that voice inside that mocks your gambit to escape, saying, how could you attempt being today something you were not yesterday? Aren't you good enough just as you are? Moses is the liberator, the infinite force deep within, an impetuous and all-powerful drive to break out from any bondage, to always transcend, to connect with that which has no bounds. Remember, the first step towards freedom and the promised land is just a thought away. Let us enjoy the silence. Amen and blessed be.
Our reading today is from J. Michelson, a journalist, professor, commentator on CNN, author of 10 books, and a rabbi. He writes, "Last week, a friend of mine emailed me to say, I'm hosting the first night of Passover. I have some folks coming from different generations and with vastly different perspectives on Zionism and Israel and the war in Gaza. I'm trying to put together some appropriate readings or passages to use during the Seder. Do you have any thoughts?" I replied, "I do. I bet a lot of folks are facing similar challenges. After all, while political disagreements at the Seder, Thanksgiving, every other holiday table you can think of aren't new, this year really is different from other years. Whether we are sympathetic to the Palestinians or are committed Zionists who want only Jews in Israel, the Jewish community and our extended family and friends are hurting. The Passover Seder is designed for this moment. Created and changed frequently over 1,000 years, the rituals and text of the evening are designed for both children and adults, designed to provoke conversation, remembrance, and direct experience of the Exodus story. It's an unfortunate irony that these models of free-ranging conversation are instead often recited verbatim, like magic words that one is required to utter every year. Instead, we should use the texts and rituals of the Seder to illuminate the moral and emotional weight of the present moment. The Seder's authors stretched out over centuries and introduced the many visual symbols, from the traditional matzah and Elijah's cup to, in our days, Miriam's cup and the orange. The Seder has been adapted to address the Holocaust, the COVID-19 pandemic, the Crusades, the redemption of the Ethiopian and Soviet Jews, and just about every other time, joyous and tragic, in Jewish history. It can accommodate 2024 as well. My favorite addition to the Seder ritual is a prayer written by the so-called Velveteen Rabbi, Rachel Barenblatt. Here is her prayer, which I hope remains a part of the Seder for centuries to come. To our friends and family, from the windswept Golan to the sands of Arava, we hold you in our hearts. We hold your children in our hearts. Our fate is bound up in yours. And to the parents and children from Ramallah to Gaza City, who also do not wish for war, we love this land with you. We pray for better with you, and we yearn for peace with you. God, with all of the desperation in our hearts, we plead, may it be true that peace will yet come. Rachel was criticized by some for caring about the Jewish hostages, and by others for caring about the famine in Gaza. But she wrote in reply, "A heart that refuses to see the humanity of the other is its own form of Mitzrayim, Egypt, a source of oppression."
from the rattlesnake desert, the Utah desert. I picked up my money and head back into town, driving across the Rainsboro County line. The radio on, I'm just killing time, working all day in my dad's garage, driving all night, chasing some mirage. Pretty soon, girl, I'm gonna take charge. The dogs on Main Street howl, cause they understand. If I could take one moment into my hands, Mr. Ryan, a boy, no, I'm a man, and I believe in the promised land. I've done my best to live the right way. I get up every morning, go to work each day, but my eyes go blind and your blood runs cold. Sometimes I feel so weak I just want to explode, explode and tear this whole town apart. Take a knife and cut this pain from my heart. Find somebody itching for something to start. The dogs on Main Street howl, cause they understand. If I could take one moment into my hands, Mr. Ryan, a boy, no, I am a man, and I believe in the promised land. Dark cloud rising from the desert floor. I've packed up my bags and head straight into the storm. It's gonna be a twister, blowing everything down. It ain't got the faith to stand its ground. Blow away the dreams that tear you apart. Blow away the dreams that break your heart. Blow away the lies that leave you nothing but lost and broken hearted. The dogs on Main Street howl, cause they understand. If I could take one moment into my hands, Mr. Ryan, a boy, no, I'm a man, and I believe in the promised land. Yeah, I believe in the promised land. Yeah, I believe in the promised land.
If someone told you that once a year they celebrated their God for killing babies of their enemies, you might for a moment stop eating your donut and drinking your coffee. But then, if you think about it, you realize that once a year, Christians also celebrate the story of a man rising from the dead with bloody holes in his side, hands and feet, and then a lot of his followers eat a bite of his body and drink his blood once a week. Sounds a little odd when you say it that way, doesn't it? And we could do this all day, telling strange stories from the world religions that are not the facts of history, but are obviously something else, something important. Biblical archaeologists have told us since the 1920s that what is called the Exodus group of Semitic people who escaped slavery in Egypt, it was probably a very small group, not way over 1 million people as reported in the Bible. And that group didn't conquer the land of Canaan. They just lived there and developed a different religion from that of the indigenous people. Obviously, the people who wrote the Bible, and of course the movie director, Cecil B. DeMille, they took great liberties with historical facts. But the stories of the Passover celebration aren't just about something that happened way back when. Instead, they are stories that keep people thinking about their lives in a world where there are still plenty of angry pharaohs, swarms of locusts, and thankfully, an occasional Moses-like Savior to take us to a better place. We are here today not to try to celebrate Passover as though we are of the Jewish faith, but to honor its wisdom as best we can. To do that, we need to follow the teaching of a familiar passage from the Seder Haggadah, which is the text of the service performed around the table. And the Haggadah says, every person and every generation must look upon their self as if they personally had come forth out of bondage in Egypt. Today, may we humbly try to make that same journey by following the ancient story of the Passover celebration. Near the beginning of the ceremonial dinner, called the Seder, a child asks, "What makes this night different from all other nights?" Another person reads in reply, "We were slaves to Pharaoh in the land of Egypt, and the Lord our God took us out from there with a strong hand and an outstretched forearm. And if the Holy One, blessed be He, had not taken our ancestors from Egypt, behold, we and our children and our children's children would all be enslaved to Pharaoh in Egypt. And even if we were all sages, all discerning, all elders, all knowledgeable about the Torah, it would be a commandment upon us to tell the story of the Exodus from Egypt. And anyone who adds and spends extra time in telling the story, behold, they are praiseworthy." Isn't that amazing? You can add readings to your Seder. It is not treated as some doctrine that is too holy to touch. Lynn and I have been invited to a number of Seder celebrations over the years, and something always gets the kids to laughing. Nothing like talking about a plague of frogs to make kids giggle. But the giggling was fine, because laughter is part of life, along with plenty of somber drama, and the story of Passover is a play about life, its struggles, and its beauty. I've learned that some families even have their Haggadah in a 3-ring notebook so they can add or subtract readings easily, but reverently, I'm sure. But whether you are of the Jewish faith and wrestling with what Passover says about the war in Gaza, or if you are UUs, envious of religions that actually have ancient and meaningful rituals, whichever the case may be, Pharaoh, the villain, is an important part of the myth's wisdom. Deciding who is the villain in life is very important and is very helpful in our world that has plenty of Darth Vaders in real life. The real meaning of Pharaoh is handled well in a Hasidic Haggadah that tells us, as Lynn read in our meditation, in each one of us there is an Egypt, and a Pharaoh, and a Moses, and freedom, and a promised land. Yes, you can recognize Pharaoh in yourself now and then. You'll be able to know one when you see one running for president. When you read the Passover story that way, you know it is not a history lesson. It is something else, something important. And you no longer have to worry if your God actually killed Egyptian newborn babies. Like the parting of the Red Sea, it's not a historical fact. It's part of a myth, the good kind. And as in your dreams, every character and even the scenery represents a part of you. So the death of a baby or babies in dreams and myths almost always indicates the dying of immature ideas and ways of being that have to go away so we can become free and mature. So who is the modern day Pharaoh to Passover celebrants and to us respectful Seder bystanders as the horrific war in Israel-Palestine rages on? No doubt, it would be easy for many of us, and for Jews especially, and especially for Israeli citizens, to assume that the Pharaoh is the Hamas leadership. Maybe that is true, in part. But ancient myths ask us to see things about ourselves and our group which can be hard to admit. Our dreams, and certainly not the Passover myth, don't come to pat us on the back like some preacher preaching to the choir saying, "Oh, we are all so great." Instead, they challenge everyone to see the truth, no matter how uncomfortable. So, as the author of 10 books and today's reading, Rabbi J. Michelson said, the Passover Seder is practically designed for this moment because it is designed to provoke conversation, remembrance, and direct experience of the Exodus story. End quote. As an outspoken critic of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Michelson has shown conclusively that Netanyahu has worked to keep Hamas in power because that guarantees there will be no Palestinian state. He explains that Netanyahu said in 2019 that he had allowed money from the nation of Qatar to support Hamas to keep Palestinians divided. Whoever is against a Palestinian state should be for it. They should be for this arrangement, said Netanyahu, because it cuts Hamas off from the Palestinian Authority, making a viable Palestinian state impossible. Rabbi Michelson does not come right out and say it, but his article in the Rolling Stone magazine entitled "Bibi's War" makes it clear for many Jews who support the rights of the Palestinians that Netanyahu is the Pharaoh that oppresses the world in general and Palestinians in particular. Oppresses them with their captivity and a war that literally kills thousands of children. But we cannot feel smug pointing out other prime villains, or we would not be true to the lesson of the Passover Seder. Throughout our nation's history, our own elected officials and millions of Americans supported pharaohs on this continent who oppressed, even enslaved people of color, indigenous Americans, women, and people who are LGBTQ, thinking all the while that they were Moses the Savior. To this continuing blindness, the Passover Seder offers a champion. The Passover story's hero, Elijah. Most of us don't realize that Moses is barely mentioned in the Passover Seder. It's about God, not Moses. But nearing the end of the Seder, Haggadah, we read, "May the merciful one sustain us with honor. May the merciful one break the yoke of exile from our neck, and may he lead us upright to our land. May the merciful one send us Elijah the prophet, and may he be remembered for good and bring us good tidings, salvation, and consolation. And throughout the Seder ritual, along with this traditional 4 cups of wine used by the celebrants, is a 5th cup of wine on the table that is left untouched. It is there for Elijah when he returns to redeem his people in some future time of need. A door to the room is briefly opened to invite him in. Why Elijah? The Bible tells us that when Elijah got hungry, the ravens fed him. He raised a widow's son from the dead and multiplied her meager supply of food with the wave of a hand. He could call down fire from heaven at will, and he was the only character in the Hebrew Bible who did not die. He was instead carried into the heavens in a chariot of fire. Oh yeah, you want to make Elijah welcome at your meal. He does magic. We are told that Passover is all about redemption, being saved, both in the past and in the future. Elijah's waiting cup says, do not give up hope in your time of need. Right now, the people of Ukraine certainly need hope to keep alive. Many of them are of the 45,000 Jewish families in the 169 surviving Jewish communities throughout the country. There were 180 such communities before the war. And meanwhile, back in America, there are politicians who support pharaohs. They refuse money to Ukraine because they think Putin, he's not so bad. And they are more fearful of the peaceful Latinos at our borders than of an actual disastrous war in Europe. They also give the forces of oppression a double gift by insisting that America give more money for bombs to help Netanyahu destroy an entire people who are, of course, Muslims. Elijah, the world needs you, and many thousands of the Jewish faithful are opening their door to him as they now celebrate Passover in Ukraine. But we naturally ask, in what form will Elijah appear to save the day? Did he have a round-trip ticket for that chariot of fire and will arrive in the sky someday soon? Of course not. And he, she, they have already arrived many times. In 2022, while the first Russian missiles rained down on Kiev, a renowned progressive rabbi, Alexander Duchovny, recorded an emotional plea from a shelter in the basement of a 5-story building. He said in a speech that would soon spread internationally over social media, "It's a difficult time. It's very emotional, but I know that you're with us, and we know that always good is overtaking evil, and this is what will happen." He then broadcast religious lectures to his congregation throughout the 10 days he spent in the basement, reading and singing Ukrainian poetry and songs with the others taking shelter there. And then he made Elijah real, not as someone who will appear later, but as one who is always with us and in us. He said in an interview with Time magazine that in our Passover Seder, we have a cup for Elijah, which is a symbol that good will prevail and overcome evil. So there is always hope. This is my message, even in these days. At that time, he was the senior rabbi of the Reformed Jewish community of Ukraine. And though he has since disappeared from the internet news, in those frightening days early in the war, he was able to be the Elijah to his people. And he kept the message of the Seder alive. The message that some God, some wisdom, some power out there, in here, wherever, saves, redeems those who seek to participate in that power. As the Seder Haggadah says, every person in every generation must look upon themselves as if they had personally come forth out of bondage in Egypt. It says, the merciful one will break the yoke of exile. He will send us Elijah the prophet, and may he be remembered for good, bringing us good tidings, salvation, and consolation. Obviously, if you have been in bondage and oppressed, you should never want to be the source of oppression. And you should be able to see a Pharaoh when one arrives. If you don't, are you being true to the lesson of Passover? Obviously, wherever else the merciful one and their Elijah might be, they also have to be in us. And I believe that is a Passover fact. Thank you.
Please stand if willing and able. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole.
No one has ever become poor by giving. Those words are from Anne Frank and prompt us to consider, what is it that I can give? Your giving can be of time, your talents, and of course your treasure. We invite you to join us as we take the collection by placing your offering in the basket at the back of the church as you leave, or by an online gift at uuflint.org. Thank you.
Be kind, be brave, be just, be merciful, be hopeful. This is how we keep the chalice flame burning until we meet again.
And let us extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
lights out tonight. Trouble in the heartland, got a head-on collision, smashing in my guts, man. Caught in a crossfire that I don't understand. But that's one thing I know for sure, girl, I don't give a damn for the same old played-out scenes. I don't give a damn for just the in-betweens. Honey, I want the heart, I want the soul, I want control right now. Talk about a dream, try to make it real. Wake up in the night with a fear so real. You spend your life waiting for a moment that just won't come. Don't waste your time waiting, Badlands. Gotta live it every day. Let the broken heart stand as the price you gotta pay. Keep on pushing till it's understood. These Badlands start treating us good. Working in the field till you get your back burned. Working neath the wheels till you get your facts learned. Baby, I got my facts learned real good right now. You better get it straight, darling. Poor man wanna be rich, rich man wanna be king. A king ain't satisfied till he rules everything. I wanna go out tonight, I wanna find out what I've got. I believe in the love that you gave me. I believe in the faith that could save me. I believe in the hope, and I pray someday that it may raise me above these Badlands. I'm living every day, Badlands. It's the price you gotta pay. Keep on pushing till it's understood. These Badlands start treating us good. Oh, these Badlands, you gotta live it every day. Let the broken heart stand as the price you gotta pay. Keep pushing till it's understood, and these Badlands start treating us good.